Good morning.
Morning, Lama Losang. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You look good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's so much with you, and if you maybe we can, depending on how this goes, which I'm sure it'll go great, we can I'd love to host you again because you just have too much information, I think.
Well, there's a lot of things. That's true. We'll see how it goes, as you say. But I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at the book, but there are actually going to be 8 books. This is the first of a series of 8 covering what I'm calling the Golden Eight-Petaled Lotus. And we can talk about that too. But it covers, you know, a lot of different areas of study. That the way we used to train physicians, starting with mind training. That starts it off, developing bodhicitta and loving kindness for a physician, and then the Tai Chi and Qigong and diet, nutrition, acupressure, the I Ching and divination, Mo, and feng shui, astrology, herbal medicine, and this is all based on 5 elements: acupuncture, philosophy, and practice.
So, do you want to start there? Do you want to start with an introduction?
Yeah, we can start with an introduction. Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with. We can certainly do an introduction, and that will segue, into what I'm currently doing. And I think that you had some interest in Buddhism and martial arts, so we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, well, especially the Tai Chi and the health, and then Tibetan Buddhism and how these two come together. So that's why you're particularly interesting because not many people are able to have this discussion because they don't have a foot in both fields like you do.
Well, just briefly, and the brief part of it is, I'm a fully ordained monk in the Karma Kagyü tradition, and that is my first and primary role is as a monk, but that and as a teacher of Buddhism, but that really influences and colors everything I do. I'm also presently the president and of the traditional acupuncture center in Gainesville, where I see patients. It's a holistic healthcare facility, multidimensional approaches to health and well-being. And I had a school here as well, the Florida School of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. I trained a lot of acupuncture physicians. We are licensed as primary healthcare physicians in Florida, and I had the good fortune of helping to write the laws and rules. When I started as an acupuncturist those many years ago, there were no laws. You had to either be a physician or practicing under one. And when I came back from England, where I studied in Oxford, England, with J.R. Worsley, the 5-element acupuncture that he taught, I immediately began practicing, and people had such a good result that they wanted to know more about it. I was probably the first in Florida, but certainly the first in Gainesville. And people were having a good result and wanted to learn more, and they rallied around of me, and they said we have to know more about this. So we created a school. It first started as a apprenticeship program that the state granted those of us who became licensed to teach a handful of students at a time. So I started doing that as an apprenticeship program that led to the Florida School of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. And it was one of the nation's first fully accredited schools. And when I left on retreat, to do a 3-year retreat under my teacher, Kebakaka Rinpoche, I sold the school. But I continued, my interest in Asian medicine. You may also know that I finished a Ph.D. in psychology from the University of Florida in psychology, and my research, for my doctoral dissertation was called the effect of the relaxation response on the positive personality characteristics of paraprofessional counselors. I was training psychologists and paraprofessional counselors, using meditation as a way to improve their outcomes of these participating paraprofessional counselors, psychotherapists, by using meditation as the tool to engender a positive regard, genuineness, and what we consider the positive personality characteristics necessary to get out of your own mind, your own head, and projections, and be able to listen better to the patient. Anyway, it was statistically significant. In fact, the University of Florida thought it was so interesting, they decided to publish it. There's a lot of dissertations that come through the University of Florida, but they thought that this was interesting enough that they published it, and you can find it through the University of Florida Library Press. And so that continued, that situation, excuse me. And so I also, studied my the martial arts, which actually started in high school. I began, oops, there we go. In high school, I became interested in martial arts. And my interest in martial arts study also cultivated an interest in meditation as well. I studied with a Japanese black belt by the name of Kenji Nonin. And he taught me in those early days, the sitting practice, Japanese zazen. So I began my meditation practice at the same time. And so all of these interests, I think are just reflective of, my past interest. As you know, in most Asian religions, including Buddhism, there are teachings on karma and reincarnation. So, these teachings say that we don't come into this world as a blank slate or tabula rasa. We bear the karmic seeds of many past lives. And these seeds from past experiences eventually ripen and propel us in the directions, various directions in our life, and influence our life choices. So early on, I had this interest in martial arts, in medicine, and meditation. All these experiences left an indelible karmic imprint on my mind, we say in the mind stream, and served to propel us on our life's journey. So I've been very fortunate, to have wonderful teachers, and to be able to have done the things that I've done. And now, I had a dream where this eight-petaled lotus was presented to me. And I realized the significance of that immediately, which was it represented what are sometimes called the 8 branches, of healing and of teaching that all the physicians went through. It really came from the Yellow Emperor's classic of medicine. That's the discussion of the Yellow Emperor with his physician Chipo. And so those are basically the 8 different aspects that I'll be exploring in the series of books. So the first one is book 1 is the wisdom, compassion, and awakening. That's the first of the series of the golden 8-petaled lotus. That is petal number 1. We have to start there. Way of health, healing, and awakening. So that is a little bit about the introduction, on how I got to where I am right now. And currently, I'm starting a new adventure. Um, Besides my private practice and the teaching responsibilities to the local KTCs, or the the Triana Dharma Chakras lineage of the Karma Kagyü lineage, and the KTCs, which are the Dharma centers associated with our KTD, the Mother Center in Woodstock, New York, the seat of His Holiness, the 17th Karmapa. And we're starting a new retreat center. So I'm the president of that Southeast Buddhist Retreat Center, and we're looking at purchasing 20 acres. And we're going to be coming into a difficult time. It's I don't think it's a big surprise to say we're coming into kind of a dark time, and there's a lot of food insecurity and a lot of stress and worry and emotional upheaval. So at any rate, this will be a refuge from the storm, this retreat center and farm. So we'll grow food, and not only for nourishing the body, but also the spiritual aspect of what the Buddha taught. So this is what I'm working on right now.
Wonderful. And you're down in Florida, so it's gonna be around Gainesville?
It will be. It's about 20 minutes from where I am now. I'm actually here in front of my shrine where I usually do my teaching. So this is our shrine room in Gainesville, the Gainesville KTC.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful to hear you're doing that. So I was familiar with a lot of your background, but I didn't realize you had started martial arts as a child. So you were doing Japanese martial arts, and then that
Yes.
into the Tai Chi?
Yes. Eventually,
Eventually.
with as a young person, you want to. It was the hard arts. I started with karate, this Renbukan style, and this black belt, Kenji Nonan, was my idol. I wanted to be just like him. So at 18, I was working with him. So it's that was the blocking and punching, and you want to break boards and just be a tough guy. But as you get a little older, you graduate to a different way of thinking, as well as appreciating the internal martial arts. So from that external aspect, I went to Aikido, which is a wonderful system of martial arts as well. And then the study with my teacher, Patrick Watson, the School of Tai Chi in New York, and who was a student of Professor Ching Ben Ching. And I do the 37 posture short yang form, as I've been trained in.
And so you never met Professor yourself? You studied under one of his senior students?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So this is a question that I really wanted to ask you. So I know that you have this background in Tai Chi. Do we find something equivalent in Tibetan Buddhism, or are you just bring this in as a way to incorporate it into the practice, and how do you do that?
Well, actually, there are roots of Tai Chi, is a type of Qigong.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really look back on the history of Tai Chi, we can see that, we look at the Dharma. So if we travel back in time more than 2,500 years, when Prince Siddhartha was born in India, he relinquished his kingdom, as we know, his fortune and family, to begin to benefit beings and to make the journey to find the truth and ultimate freedom from suffering. To do this, he established Buddhist communities and ordained monks and lay people to study and practice together. And the followers of the Buddha spread these teachings, called the Buddha Dharma. One such teacher, Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, as many people know who have studied Buddhism, crossed the treacherous Himalayas mountains and brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 6th century. But there was another teacher who also crossed the Himalayas to spread Buddha Dharma in China, and his name was Bodhidharma. Mm-hmm. And the complete story of Bodhidharma would be more than we can cover here, but he too was a prince, and after his father's death, he became a student of Prajnadhara, and Bodhidharma served his master for 40 years. And after Prajnadhara's passing, he followed his teacher's wishes and traveled from India to spread the Dharma in China. And when he arrived in China, he became known as Tamo. We often see him in the literature as Tamo, and became the first Chinese Chan or Zen patriarch, and established his monastery, which you probably have heard of, the Shaolin Temple in northern China. And his popularity and reputation as a teacher and practitioner grew, and so did his monastery and the number of his monks. And he noticed that his monks were in poor health and unable to perform their monastic duties. And in addition, at that time, there were hordes of marauding bandits that were attacking and pillaging surrounding monasteries and villages. And this had become a serious threat to the Shaolin monastery. So the monks had not been trained to protect themselves and the monastery from attack. So because of this threat to their survival, Bodhidharma began training his monks in ways to strengthen their bodies and to protect themselves, the monastery, and the Buddha Dharma. So this was the beginning of the famous Shaolin style of martial arts, and became part of the monks' daily routine. And some of you may remember, some may be old enough to remember a 70s television series called Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. And when I was in my early 20s or late teens, I forgot, it's somewhere back there. That was one of my favorites. And you may remember David Carradine played the role of Kwai Chang Caine, a peace-loving Shaolin monk traveling around the Old West. And they would show flashbacks to his time in China at the Shaolin Temple, practicing martial arts and meditation with his Buddhist teachers. And I found this message at the time, very compelling. But first and foremost, they were monks studying and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. And having trained in meditation, the monks continued to cultivate mental strength and clarity and meditation, and their bodies were made stronger with the martial arts and Qigong, breathing exercises, stretching to enhance flexibility and movement. So Bodhidharma brought the training of body and mind together for spiritual and physical advancement on the path to enlightenment. And in so doing, really revolutionized both monastic training and martial arts training in China. So I guess we can say that, there is this connection, with the Buddhist and Taoist monks began practicing martial arts in monasteries such as the Shaolin Temple. Mm-hmm. Although Tai Chi is much newer than the Shaolin styles, it originated, 1,200 years ago. And in its beginning, Tai Chi was studied and practiced as an effective form of Chinese martial arts. Mm-hmm. And its roots really also in traditional Chinese medicine, and used to balance the body's energy,
right,
and flow of qi.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So I think most of the martial arts students or Tai Chi students hopefully know this history with Bodhidharma. So now we have the other student or teacher taking to Tibet, Padmasambhava. As a result, or maybe not just because of him, but just this other tradition or path up into Tibet, do we find similar practices for the Tibetans that were passed or created?
I'm more familiar with the Chinese aspect.
Yeah.
There may be I don't have really the same history of Tibetan martial arts, but they were a very warlike and very aggressive
Right.
culture, and they were tamed by Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, when he came to Tibet from India. So, but I really haven't heard much about that. But we do know about um, the Shaolin Temple.
Right, right. So
Yeah,
then we have the health aspect coming from the Qigong and then the medicine. We have an equivalent in Tibet. Would we, I know we have Tibetan medicine, and I think we have like Kumne, and there's even like Nejong and Trulkor. Is this an equivalent? Can we make comparisons to the
those are
two?
yogas. Those are more like yogas. I mean,
Mhm.
I wouldn't consider them martial arts. And the Trilkor is a very important part of the training of the monks, but it is more for we talk about the 6 yogas of Naropa,
Yeah.
and it is a way to generate heat and is part of that system, our Mahamudra system, associated with the 6 yogas of Naropa.
But the health thing is not there like the Qigong. We're not going to make that connection. I don't mean martial arts, but the health, like
Neijing, the Neijong is, yeah,
okay, good. Yeah.
yeah.
And then China and Tibet and India, I mean, the geography here and the timeline and the culture, there's so much similarity and closeness and so much information being passed back and forth for over 1,000 years. So um, I think there's so much similarities, I think, in the different things that we maybe sometimes want to put things in boxes when maybe it's not that rigid as we want to make it.
Yeah, it's best not to make it so rigid. I mean, they do share, I mean, in terms of the medicine, they share a great deal of overlap and tradition. So that's right.
Yeah. All right. So then you use and your students use Qigong as a meditation and health practice?
Mostly for health, that's right. So, the style of Tai Chi that I practice, can be traced back to the Chen family. Although Tai Chi was cloaked in secrecy, there appeared, prominent martial artists. And we can go, if you want, the history of the Yang family, um, Yang Lu Shan, who perfected the style that we now call Yang style of Tai Chi and the family lineage. Lineage is very important in the martial arts and in medicine and in Buddhism as well. As you know, there are many different lineages. If we're looking at the Theravada, or we're looking at the Mahayana, or we're looking at the Vajrayana systems, there are lineages, many different ways to express, the profound teachings of the Buddha. And in the same way, martial arts have different lineages. So this is the Yang style and the Yang family, which Cheng Man-ching, who studied under Yang Chen-fu, was an exceptional practitioner who exhibited, mastery of the style. And his student, Professor Cheng Man-ching, refined the original style to what is now called the Yang style short form, 37 different postures. But this is our lineage of Tai Chi. So, there, Professor Cheng Man-ching, that would be someone that you could really learn from. He was truly a Renaissance man, master of the 5 excellences, for his tremendous talent and expertise in painting and poetry, calligraphy, medicine, and Tai Chi. And the professor said, that trained in these different aspects. And as a physician, he would always tell his patients, do more Tai Chi. That was the way to prevent disease. So I do the same thing. And I teach Tai Chi as well. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's wonderful. Yeah, I think sometimes we can get into the meditation and in Buddhism, like I know Chinese Buddhism, but in the other traditions, there seems to be sometimes missing that element of like if you do these movement practice, there's some sort almost like a physical therapy there. And so sometimes we go to other traditions for that element. And um, is that wise? The Tibetans don't have it themselves. Is that correct?
Not the same way. Again, although I'm trained in Tibetan Buddhism,
Yeah.
the culture is so diverse and vast. I'm sure there are expressions of martial arts there, but it hasn't been my experience, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
You know, but Tai Chi provides, the practical skills to focus and to. I teach it more as a moving meditation. So we can look at the different aspects of qigong and meditation or practice qigong practice. It improves overall health and balance. It removes blockages in the meridians. It improves the flow of qi. It clears the mind. It helps make it more tranquil. And we talk about in meditation shamatha or tranquility meditation, which is really concentration, and vipassana, which is the insight meditation. But first, we have to tame our mind. So, doing Tai Chi is a way to clear and allow that natural tranquility of mind to become present. It gives us more energy and vitality. So, and so many physical things. It balances hormones, prevents disease, and strengthens the body, improves digestion. The list goes on. Strengthens the tendons and ligaments, connective tissue, can reduce pain, improve sleep, stress management. I mean, we could say so much about. And I'm saying this about Tai Chi, but Tai Chi is a type of Qigong. So we could say the same thing about Qigong. Qigong may be a little easier to practice and learn because they can be independent practices, but there are 37 different postures in the Tai Chi form that takes a little while to learn. But Qigong is ancient Chinese system of self-cultivation. So we can do the same kind of thing. The idea here, it's a method for improving our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
Yeah. And okay, so with these Eight-Petaled Lotus series you're writing, the first text on the wisdom, compassion, and awakening, this is where we start. This is the foundation.
This is where we start. Yes, you have to tame your mind. So the Buddhist teaching can be pretty much summarized with three things: cultivate virtue, avoid wrongdoing, and tame your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So the taming of the mind part is meditation. Cultivating virtue. Through the six six virtues or paramitas. There's different ways for avoiding wrongdoing and harm. We look at the Buddhist teaching. His first teaching, after his enlightenment, was the Four Noble Truths, which is basic to all of the schools and traditions of Buddhism, which basically, there is suffering, and we have to know suffering. The Buddha said that it's usually we think we have to avoid suffering. We don't want suffering, so we try to avoid it. But he said to know suffering. And once we do that, it does not have to have the same impact. So know suffering, realize suffering, recognize suffering, and know that there's a cause for that suffering. We investigate that cause. That's the second. And the third is to understand that there's a way out of that suffering. There's a remedy, and that remedy is the Noble Eightfold Path. So that is the way that we avoid wrongdoing, is by practicing virtue and taming our mind, and cultivating virtue, and obviously avoiding the wrongdoing through unethical and immoral behavior, which leads to negative karma, which just leads to more suffering. So we have to see that feedback loop.
So part of this, so we begin our inquiry into what is suffering and recognize our own suffering. And at some point, we recognize that our thoughts are unruly, or the way we're interpreting things, and we're making choices that are not in our best interest all the time. And so this is a phase that's going to take a little while and mature us along the way and create a stable base.
Well, first we have to start. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, right?
Yeah.
So we have to take that first step. We have to understand that, and then we should find a teacher. Left to our own devices, we've been wandering in samsara since beginningless time. That's a long time, and so far we haven't really discovered the vehicle or the way. And that's we talk about the way there, or the vehicle. There's the Hinayana or the Theravada vehicle. There's the Mahayana vehicle. There's the Vajrayana, Tantrayana vehicle. And these are different ways that we can progress along the path, but we do have to begin. And then there are two faults: not beginning and not finishing. We have to take it to its conclusion. And we either don't start, or we start and we don't finish. And either one of those is not going to lead to the result.
Yeah, there's so many people today who have anxiety, and so there's no easy fix. We have to
Oh, there's a lot of fear. I mean, more than ever, it seems like a lot of the problems we see are based on fear, and people are reactive. It's they're polarized. They're taking this stand and that stand, and you're wrong and I'm right. And that just leads to more suffering. You don't have to look far to see that.
Wonderful. So, okay. So I know it's sort of a quick jump. So now that the person interested, the practitioner has this step, where do we go from here? What's the next pedal?
Well, it begins with with taming the mind. So once we've tamed our mind, we do think about Qigong and Tai Chi. That is the next pedal, actually. So we have to cultivate our own Qi. So what is Qi? You may ask the question, and there's nothing more fundamental to Asian medicine than understanding the concept of Qi. So Qi is the Chinese word for life energy. It exists within our bodies in the microcosm, and as well as all around us in the macrocosm. It's the life-giving force that flows through all living things. And we can see it in the gracefulness of the athlete. We can see it in the brushstroke of the painter. We can see it in the beauty of a flower arrangement. We can hear it in a piece of music. This is all Qi and reflections of Qi. And a healthy person has abundant energy and balanced Qi. So this is, again, this was the training for physicians. And, a physician needs to lead by example. Unfortunately, we don't see that very often either. So the Qi flows in our body through pathways called meridians, and the human body has 20 meridians. We say the 12, and there's 8 extra meridians with specific organ systems. And it is along these meridians that we find the acupoints in acupuncture. And, that is part of the 8 petals as well, is talking about acupuncture, acupressure. And there are different types of Qi. Should we go into those different types of Qi?
Yeah, please.
Well, there are basically 5 types of interconnected Qi flowing through our body's meridians. And we begin with prenatal Qi, also called source Qi, which is what we inherit from our parents. It is our genetic predisposition that is fixed at the time of our birth and stored in the kidneys. And we are dependent on this ancestral energy of our parents to provide the basis, for our future. And as this prenatal Qi is a product of health of the parents and the care that they gave to the child in utero, and the father's health at this point of conception is important, but is vitally important that the mother eat healthily and maintain a healthy lifestyle throughout the pregnancy. And this will give her child the best chance of a good health throughout the life. So our life and all the activities are influenced by this prenatal Qi, supplemented by postnatal Qi. So what is postnatal Qi? This is the energy that maintains our life after birth and is affected by the purity of the food we eat, the air we take in, as well as our daily routines and lifestyle choices. This is where Qigong comes in. It also is called acquired qi and is classified in two kinds. There's the air qi and food qi. So we need both. The air qi is the qi extracted by the lungs. That's the job of the lungs, to extract the pure qi from the heavens that we breathe. And the food qi is the qi extracted in our digestive process. And postnatal qi strengthens our prenatal qi. So it is important to keep strong and freely flowing qi, both from the initial the natal qi, prenatal qi, and it's supplemented by the postnatal natal qi. And our postnatal qi is dissipated by poor diet, drugs, indiscriminate sex, overexertion, lack of sleep, stress of all kinds, exposure to toxins. Those kinds of things affect our postnatal qi as well. There's also gathering qi. This is a combination of air qi and food qi, which mixes in the chest, sometimes called the qi of the chest. And gathering qi is catalyzed by the prenatal qi to form the qi that flows in the channels known as nutritive qi. So these are, I mean, this is what the traditional Chinese medicine doctor works with. This is accomplished in a comparable manner to that blood is carried to the cells through blood vessels. It is qi that is the qigong practitioners accumulate and circulate in the meridians. And there's protective qi that can be called, it's sometimes called wei qi. And this circulates on the outside of the body and protects against external pathogens, pathogenic influences such as extremes in weather, pathogens, viruses, bacteria, etc., psychic stress, other negative external influences. So it makes sense that it is also known as defensive qi. It even maintains our body warmth, controls perspiration, and regulates an opening and closing of the pores of the skin. So when we have spontaneous sweating, usually that is poor protective qi, usually related to the lungs, but there's a variety of symptoms that occur when our protective qi is not healthy. So our healthy life depends on our good qi, you know, the good prenatal qi, our genetic makeup, the proper maintenance of the life energy, the good food, lifestyle, that's our postnatal qi. And so that is our nutritive qi that circulates in the meridians, and the protective qi that blends and harmoniously works in our activities of body and mind and spirit. So our qigong training really influences that.
All five of those.
All five of those, absolutely.
And you don't need to have like a idea of what you're just doing. The qigong strengthens all five simultaneously.
It does, but the more mindfulness we can have in it, the better. You know, it involves working with energy and developing and cultivating it. But mind is a very important part of that. The qi is governed by the mind. It follows the mind. So we do have to be present. You know, it is the energy that makes us feel alive, and this vital energy exists within our bodies, but we have to cultivate our mind as well. So that when we're breathing in, we're aware of breathing in, we're breathing out, we're aware of breathing out. And so we're also cultivating mindfulness at the same time.
So this is what's referred, so this relationship is what's referred to sometimes as the three treasures. So like the mind's working directly with the qi to influence it?
Yes, yeah. So there are different types of qigong as well. Once we cultivate it, the qigong practices vary, you know, among different schools. So these schools can be classified in three different categories: spiritual qigong, medical qigong, and martial arts qigong.
Yeah.
So, you know, the spiritual qigong consists of different schools. You know, there are Buddhist schools. There are that really focus on the mind. You know, that is the emphasis is cultivate greater awareness of our states of mind by meditation, and uses the mind to open the flow of qi in the meridians, and thereby increasing a person's health and well-being. The Confucian school is somewhat similar. It cultivates a state of tranquility to develop moral and ethical character for harmonious interpersonal relationships. That would be considered spiritual qigong. But there's medical qigong as well, that treats disease and promotes health, and we can build up our qi and then use it for healing. A type of medical qigong that we will practice involves breathing exercises combined with meditation. And through meditation, one lets go of cares and worries and gets the feeling of well-being and calmness. The primary goal of the medical qigong is to restore balance and harmony and prevent disease. And then there's martial arts qigong, which aims to build up a student's inner strength and being invulnerable to attack, whether it's morally or physically. And Tai Chi is the same way, as we say, it's a type of martial art, and it's taught for internal strength is greater than just muscular strength. It's an internal martial art and specializes in the circulation of the cultivation of qi to support and strengthen offensive and defensive fighting techniques.
So the 5 energies, are these also similar to the Tibetan five winds, the 5 energies there? Is there overlap or way to?
They're not. Well, it will influence those winds, which have to do with digestion and elimination, and so it definitely. I mean, they're not unrelated, but
Right.
they're yes, it would influence that as well.
So the Wei Gong energy, is there an equivalent with any of the Tibetan energies?
Well, there is, but because these are different schools, they don't talk about it in the same way. I mean, it's just, the body is the same, whether you're Tibetan or Westerner. So we're influencing the body in the same way. All these things that would apply.
Yeah. Okay, and then so you said something about so you got the 12 meridians and then the 8 extraordinary vessels, I think. So when you have a kidney meridian or a bladder meridian, are these directly related to the organ, or how because it doesn't seem like they actually touch some of these. So this relationship, I think, is a little confusing to people outside the tradition.
Yes, so there are the meridians, as you say, of each of the organ systems, but there's deep connecting pathways to the organ. These are the superficial pathways where the acupuncture points are and can influence the energy of those organs.
Right. Yeah. So I guess it's sometimes confusing, like people, how are we to think of it? So if we go to an acupuncture practitioner and they stick the needles in the kidney meridian, it's like, is it like a very clear pathway? Does it change to person to person? How deep are these things? How superficial? Like, how are we to sort of conceptualize these as?
These points on the body are like little doorways or windows to the energy. And they can be done with acupressure, which are the same points that are massaged, or just directing. I mean, the person who practices Qigong can direct the qi into that point simply by putting their finger on it, or simply by even being above the point and directing the qi into that point, or just putting the hand over that point. That is, that is one of the ways that we early on, and is not uncommon. If you get a pain, you put your hand over it, and that can be a transmission of energy to that point. But the acupuncture points are on the meridians, but that's the superficial window where you can access that. And each of the point has each point on the meridian has a very specific application. It can do what no other point can do. So one needs to know which point does what, and it is selected very specifically for that individual. So, the highest form of acupuncture or these is through the pulse. You feel the pulses, and that gives you a direct feedback as to the energy in that meridian or in that organ system. And then you recheck the pulse at the end of your treatment, and you see that you got the desired result. No change in the pulse means no change in the treatment. So if you haven't either done the treatment effectively, missed the point, or you're on the wrong meridian. So there are different ways that, in terms of the 5 elements, which is the system that I use. As I mentioned, my teacher J.R. Worsley, and I studied with him in Oxford, England. At the time, there were no schools in the United States when I started, and it was either I go to China or to Oxford. And the situation for me was my Chinese was not that good, so I opted for Oxford. But I'm very happy that I did. Dr. Worsley was an excellent teacher, and I really appreciate the beauty and poetry of the 5 element way of looking at the body and its treatment modalities.
Mm-hmm. I was just at Oxford 3 weeks ago.
What were you doing there?
We were visiting London and then went through Oxford on our way to the Cotswolds. It's gorgeous. We were just struck by the just unbelievable.
Yes.
Like, this is a campus. This is it.
Yes, yes. So we do those exercises of Qigong to influence the Qi in those meridians. And some of your listeners may be familiar with the microcosmic orbit, for example. So the microcosmic orbit is one of the most important and most popular Qigong exercises, known as the small heavenly circulation. And this is the introduction, to the Qi. And there are, more advanced practices that use additional points along the conception vessel and governing vessel, those two oceans or seas of energy that run along the spine and down the front of the body. But this practice connects opens the major organ pathways, and it's one of the things that can be taught easily. And the pathways of Qi are called meridians, as we mentioned, and all the pathways in which the Qi flows intersect and have meeting points along the governor and conception vessel. So again, it comes with the mind. We imagine a point of light up the spine and down the front, and this can help remove blockages. And the goal of the practice is to create a strong flow of Qi. And in these 2 great seas of energy that act as a reservoir for the Qi and enables us to enhances the flow of Qi, and thereby the meridians influences the Qi in the meridians and protects the entire body. Yeah.
Okay, so this is really interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. So if somebody wants to, so somebody new to this practice, they want to practice the microcosmic orbit. So I guess the question is, this is a question of embodiment now. Like, what's required? Like, is it just a visualization? Are we moving the breath? Is there a feeling aspect to this? Like, how does one approach this practice and do it successfully, or at least competently?
One can imagine there's a Hui Yin point that is between the anus and the genitals. And that is the beginning point of the Yin meridian, and it comes, or the Yang meridian, and it comes up the spine to the top of the head, the Bai Hui. So there's Hui Yin and Bai Hui, and these are the points at the, as I say, at the genital area and at the top of the head, and then it continues down to a point, through the tongue, and then down the front of the body. And there are points that, as one becomes more sophisticated with that, you can imagine those points, yin tang, between the eyebrows, and other points along these meridians. But just basically feeling a point of light. It can be like a pearl, but it doesn't have substance. It is just seen as like light. And imagine that pearl of light. Again, it's insubstantial. It is non-corporeal. It's energy, and it's running up the back to the top of the head and down the front of the body. Tongue is resting on the roof of the mouth, kind of bridges that chi, and down the front and back to that the beginning point. And you can do that, 9 times or so. You might begin with 3 times and see how that works for you, and let the breath be natural and uncontrived. Let it be at ease, so you're not forcing it in any way, and just be relaxed, be at ease, and just follow that on the inhale up, on the exhale down.
So is this up this? I'm sorry if I'm nitpicking here, but people ask me these questions, and I think from a new person, it's valid because their mind won't rest. But so like, would this be up the front of the spine, right through the spine, in the back of the spine, more superficial, and then in the front of the body, is it more toward the front? How deep? Like, what's
Along the spine.
along the spine? So the question is because I get a lot of yoga practitioners, and they're like, is this like Sushumna Nadi? Is this a central channel where it just is very linear?
It is not the central channel.
Okay.
The central channel is different.
Yeah,
The central channel is different, and where it's used differently.
okay. I think in the Chinese tradition, it's called like Chong Mai, I believe.
Well, I would say even different than usually in the Buddhist tradition. It's different.
Oh, in the Buddhist tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what this is.
So this is where those points are found. So it's relatively superficial.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's inside the spine. It runs superficial to the spine.
Yeah. And maybe being exact on location isn't the most important thing. It's just to sit down and have an experience and just a general kind of visualization.
I would say yes, and not to be too preoccupied with, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Where's this point? How is this? And then we get into a whole conceptual thing and our mind just goes off. This is just to rest in the experience without a lot of elaboration.
Hence the first book and then the second book.
That's right. That's right. We have to start at the basics. And so, yes.
Yeah. We're in an interesting time, and maybe you can speak on this. We have so much available. So many people have read this book and that book and across traditions. And then as a Westerner, maybe don't have the background of being able to tame the mind. They're not really sure what a concept is. They're not sure what the mind is. They're not sure what energy is. Not even really sure about the body. It's more like mechanical. And so and then all these different traditions are saying similar things, but different things. It's a lot for a new person entering into these traditions. Like,
that's why you need a teacher.
That's why you need a teacher.
It can be very confusing, and left to our own devices, again, we haven't done very well. You need someone who's experienced in it that can guide you. So again, sometimes our mind, we hear this and then we make a cocktail out of this. We use a little of this, we use a little of that. Not a great system. That doesn't usually lead to a good result.
Well, thank you. I think that's so important for people to hear, from a teacher and a long-term practitioner that, read the books, but a teacher's so important, and this is really the starting place.
Yes. It's true with the martial arts as well. With the Tai Chi, it's very hard to learn Tai Chi from a book. And so you want to have a skillful person who's guiding you, correcting you. Professor Cheng Men-Ching said, what do you think is most important? Is it the teaching? Is it the natural ability? Is it the practice? What is most important? And he said, it's the teaching. You can be a natural athlete and have all the skill, but if you get the wrong teaching, it will not turn out well. You can have all kinds of practice, but if you're practicing the wrong thing, not so good. You have to have the right teaching. And that's true meditation, it's true with Tai Chi, it's true with pretty much anything. That's why lineage is important. And that's why following the teacher is important. And there can be various ways of doing these things. But if you mix and match in a certain kind of way, you're going to get a mixed and matched result that is not going to be ideal.
I agree. Thank you for saying that. I believe lineage is of the utmost importance. So what's your advice for a new student looking for a teacher or a tradition or a, yeah.
Well, you have to do your due diligence, don't you? I mean, so word of mouth is good, but it has to be your experience. Who do you feel that connection with? And go and see how it works. You may start with one and not feel comfortable with that teacher for whatever reason. So it may not be the first person you contact that is the right one for you. So do your due diligence. Certainly, if this person is respected in their field and has a lineage, they're just not making stuff up. They have practiced with a teacher who also has a tradition. And then we know that they are in line, and that lineage, that line, unbroken line, can be transmitted. They carry that lineage. It's certainly true in Buddhism, but it is also true in other fields as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was even thinking with you, I was fortunate in the same way you were. I studied Japanese martial arts, and I had a teacher, a sensei, who taught us meditation. Wasn't the whole class, but it was something where I met other people that just wasn't on the menu at all for them. They went to a martial arts school, there was no meditation. And so I think because of that background with me, and I would imagine with you, then we kept moving in that particular direction because we saw the benefit.
Yeah. That's an important part. I mean, like we say, we start with the meditation, we start with the mind. And no matter what field you're doing, there should be, credit where credit is due, and that is your mind, and that begins the process. I mean, a lot of martial arts are about winning trophies, and just aggrandizing your ego, getting deeper into that self-aggrandizement and being better and trashing in the other schools and doing all those kinds of things. That is really not the highest art.
Right. I almost don't even like this word, well, the martial aspect, because like, do we need that? I know it's the way to define it so we know what each other's talking about at this point, but it's like I also mostly think a lot of these are like movement arts or meditative arts or health arts. Like there seems to be a better way to categorize this. Like I
Well,
like
those who teach martial arts will say that the best martial artist avoids the contact. Will avoid conflict, will avoid fighting for sure. So that is the last resort. But you're training your mind. That is the basis of the martial arts.
Mhm.
If we look at the traditions, if you study with the Japanese, the samurai tradition was, they were Buddhists basically, and they saw impermanence, and they were willing to go the distance. Kind of like even in the yoga traditions, when we look at the Bhagavad Gita, we have certain obligations, but we do it in the highest understanding.
Mm.
In the yogic tradition, it's the same.
I see, and that makes more sense in light of like what you were saying with Bodhidharma and training to protect the temple versus using martial arts to go out and control the masses or
Yeah, definitely.
compete. This is not the same thing.
No, it's not about winning and losing.
Yeah. Okay. So you have there's so many questions I could ask, but we're sort of at the end of the time here. So we talked about the first two books and we just scratched the surface. And you haven't written the second one yet, right?
They're actually all written and they just haven't been published yet.
Oh, they haven't been published.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk about the rest of them or do you want to wait? Is that too much for now?
Well, it's probably too much for now.
I
I
think.
mean, each one of these are standalone things. So if we can get a good feeling for, how we apply mindfulness to the martial arts and Qigong, how we can use them, this would be good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then maybe we can pick up at a later date. We'll familiarize ourselves with the rest of them and then pick up and then before we go, is there anything that we didn't get a chance to cover that you would like to say?
Well, some people ask about what books they might how they can proceed, and let's see. I think I have a couple of things here.
And I'll put the book, The Wisdom and Compassion and Awakening, in the show notes for people.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, the other book in terms of Dharma practice would be my teacher, Khenpo Karta Rinpoche. He has a book called Dharma Paths. That's published by Snow Lion. Dharma Paths, Khenpo Rinpoche, Khenpo Karta Rinpoche. The classic Tai Chi is called Tai Chi by Cheng Man Cheng and Robert Smith, the Supreme Ultimate Exercise for Health, Sport, and Self-Defense. And to know more about Cheng Man Cheng, there's an interesting book, Cheng Man Cheng, Master of the Five Excellences. So that is a translation and commentary by Mark Hennessy. And he talks about the different art of calligraphy, the art of poetry, the art of painting, and the art of medicine, and the art of Tai Chi. So he was a master of the five excellences. He was considered a national treasure, which is pretty amazing. And lastly, maybe, because we were talking about the martial arts, there's one called Path to Liberation, a spiritual and philosophical approach to the martial arts by Herman Kautz, K-A-U-Z.
I'm not familiar with that one. The other ones I'd heard of, but not that one.
Yeah, you may like that one as well. So Herman also wrote a book called Tai Chi Handbook. So that's another one, exercise, meditation, and self-defense. So those would be the books we could recommend, given our topic for today, which has been, Tai Chi and Qigong. Specifically Tai Chi. So I hope this inspires you to find a teacher. We said, the importance of finding a teacher in your community or online. Better if you can be live and in person. There are many lineages of Tai Chi. It doesn't have to be the Yang form that I've been trained in. However, they are all based on similar guiding principles and draw on the same philosophy as other sciences. So we will be, we'll study in the rest of our Eight-Petals. And the practitioner's goal is to harmonize body and mind while becoming increasingly aware of tensions in the body and releasing it. So the main kind of thing to remember in Tai Chi is to relax, relax, relax. We carry so much tension. And so when we become aware of the tension in our shoulders, relax. And so you may encounter many different aspects of practice as you journey in the world of the Tai Chi. There are different aspects. Many people are familiar with the Tai Chi form. It's also called the solo form. That's the 37 postures. But it can also include weapons, a sword, staff, spear, other kinds of things. Two-person exercise called pushing hands. There's even contact sparring, but one progresses, with their own pace. But it is basically an internal art that we are working on our own ego, and we get to see all the arising of our ego as we progress along the path.
Can you define, since I have you, what's meant by an internal art versus external art?
It is the cultivation of qi.
Qi.
So for healing and for our cultivating our spiritual practice, not external blocking and kicking and punching and breaking boards and breaking bricks and things like that. It is a soft style martial art for internal manifestation, such as Professor Cheng Man Cheng is shown in his painting, his poetry, his calligraphy, his medicine. Those are all aspects of qi And when we refine the chi, this can be reflected in so many different ways. But as we said, the three basic factors are correct teaching, proper methods and principles is most important.
Yeah.
Without proper instruction, even the most motivated and the most capable of students will not achieve the goal. So I think we can end there.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate this. This was wonderful.
Yes, my pleasure. Also, a fear of falling is a big thing for as we get older. And the coordination that comes with Tai Chi and feeling grounded and stable on our feet is very important, and it can help in everyday life as well. Our activities, whether it's carrying groceries or climbing stairs, or we want to reduce the fear of falling and feel stable in our feet and secure, so we can mitigate the risks of falling. And of course, it is a martial art, so we are also hopefully improving our overall cognition and awareness of our surroundings and those kinds of things. So there's so many benefits to it, but as we get older, those benefits become more manifest.
Yeah. I also, what's your take on or advice on sitting practice? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable or their knees after a while. Like, how do we, because some people just push through pain, some traditions say push through the pain. How do we, because this is kind of like a sitting Tai Chi, right? The body's involved.
Well, yes, but you don't have to. You're meditating with your mind. So if you need to sit, in a chair, the main thing is sitting towards the edge of this chair, keeping your spine straight and upright, chin slightly tucked in, so you can feel the straightness of your spine, imagining the spine like golden coins stacked on top of each other in a straight line. Best not to lie down, but if you can, for example, yoga is the hatha yoga. The physical postures were designed to enhance one's sitting practice, the Raja Yoga, the kingly yoga of meditation. So we're always, hopefully, the Tai Chi will enhance your ligaments and tendons and capacity to be more flexible and loose so you can sit. The ideal posture is the cross-legged, so the spine is straight. That's the most named. When you see images of the Buddha, he's sitting in the Vajra posture, one leg on top of the other, but you can sit in a half lotus, you can sit with one leg extended in front of the other, but that seated posture, seated on a cushion with your butt about 4 finger widths above your knees, with your knees flat on the floor. And that's the most comfortable position I know, but I've spent years doing it. So it doesn't always, you don't always start out that way. But gradually, by and by, if you can progress to sitting in that upright posture, Vajra posture or half lotus posture, that is great. But there's no harm in sitting in a chair. But the spine should still be straight. You're not in your lazy boy. You're not laying down, because that seated posture really is beneficial for your awareness. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. All right, I think that's enough. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you.
All right. Nice talking with you. Thank you, Bryson.